why so many people are having such a hard time to lose that belly fat or that hip fat or the rear fat. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of the hormones that actually make it hard to lose. We won't get real sciencey, although all this I'm telling you is backed by science. And
no, well, that's one of the great things about having you in here, and just, having gotten to know you over the last year or so, from watching, reading your posts, learning the stuff. I love that you are so science oriented, because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that if there isn't some study or some research paper or something like that, then they're not even going to look at it. And so it's pretty cool having you, being into that side of things, where you're always bringing out the scientific side of everything you say. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and that's it seems like there's a lot of issues. I mean, a lot of issues about people that are first introduced. Like I said, we always like to start out with the icing on the cake on what actually helps with many disease models and to lose weight. Is the icing on the cake for my protocols, the 3 protocols I have, is always going to be the hydrogen-rich water. It's always going to be that. That's the actual icing on the cake. When you combine the hydrogen-rich water with my primal eating and intermittent and prolonged fasting, it accelerates the actual fat loss. And not only does it accelerate the fat loss in those certain areas, it also is giving you some unbelievable preventative health advantages to be able to fight the environmental diseases that are out there and the diseases that are plaguing us here in the United States. And actually, science is science is backing that up as well. And what people are doing, JJ, is they're not educated in how to research. And so when that's the issue I think a lot of distributors is having. I just saw something on Facebook today or this morning of somebody who had a question on how they should answer a question to a prospect that they're sharing the water with, and it seems like everybody wants to research this water, hydrogen-rich water, and they go to Google, and we all know that Google is all it is a non-true information center. And people don't know how to guide themselves through the Google to actually get to the science research. Now, it's just like us who are in the health profession. We have to continual education ourselves. We have to continually always be educating ourselves because things change all the time. Okay, that goes with science too. So science may have come out with something 6 months ago or a year ago, but if you're not on top of it, it could easily change in a year later. So you got to constantly be educating yourself on that, and that's the issue. Is the distributors need to really educate their prospects while they're going through the sharing process with real science. And real science means either pilot studies or abstracts. That's what we'll say on the report. You'll say abstract. If it has the word abstract on top with the results on the bottom, that is real science.
So I've got a question for you. When you talk about the intermittent and prolonged fasting, do you still continue to drink the hydrogen-rich water during those time periods, correct?
Absolutely. That's what I'm always going to come back and say. The icing on the cake. What is going to? Because getting back to let's get back to the fat adaptation. What that means. Okay. And then I'll bring in the hydrogen-rich water, which is why I call it the icing on the cake. When you're doing these protocols and when you're trying to balance the issue, and how the water is pretty much going to help you to be successful to reach your results. And this is where we really need to get these health professionals and personal trainers and wellness coaches to understand that by combining the hydrogen-rich water that has the molecule that is actually makes it therapeutic, hydrogen H2, is going to escalate your progress. Now, fat adaptation is basically what you need to get your body into, right? You need to get into fat adaptation. And that means I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. And if John or JJ, if I start getting too sciencey, stop me so I can. So what you're doing here is your body has two energy sources it draws from. Okay, so the first energy source, and the most simplest and the easiest one your body will draw energy from to operate throughout the day, is going to be the glucose or sugar from the carbohydrates that you're eating. Okay, so when you're eating carbohydrates, either starchy carbs, could be potatoes, rice, pastas, breads, so forth. Even even veggies are carbohydrates. The carbohydrates that you are eating are going to be converted into what they call glucose. Glucose is basically sugar. That's what it is. Okay. Now that sugar is stored in your liver and in your muscles. And what that means is that it's stored there to be used throughout the day as energy. Okay, so your body needs food to operate throughout the day. And so it grabs whatever it needs from the liver and from the muscle. Now, the other energy source, which is known by science as being the most efficient for the body, and this is the energy source that our ancestors drew from, and that's why they were able to survive in such a severe environment, because they could not eat. I mean, they didn't have shopping centers to buy food all the time. And so the human body is so unbelievable that it had to be designed in a way that it could operate off of not eating food for 2 or 3 days while they were hunting. And so the second energy source, which is known as clean fuel or clean energy, is the fat that you're storing in your body. And so you have two energy sources that you have. You have the simple and easiest one that your body will go after first, which is going to be the glucose or the carbohydrates. Then you have the more efficient that your body would rather go into, is your fat that you're stored. Now, the fat that you're stored is very hard to get into when you have plenty of glucose or sugar in your liver or your muscle. So the object is that here in the United States, I did a video, I think last few days ago, about the Western diet. And I personally believe that it used to be said that to lose the body fat or belly fat or hip fat or lose weight, it's 80% food, which is true, and 20% exercising. Well, with all the research I'm doing and with the research I've done that we're currently doing on ourselves and other people, I personally believe that it's not 80% what you eat. It's up in the high 90%, 98%, 99%, because I've been very successful with people that can't exercise, and by changing their lifestyle, and of course with the hydrogen-rich water, they've been able to lose weight without even exercising. And this is true. And there's actually research showing that also. But the thing is that the two different energy sources is, and this is where it gets this is where it's very important for people to understand, especially those young personal trainers, so they understand the physiology of the body, that to be fat adapted, what that means is that we are eliminating the simplest and easiest source for the body to go after as energy. Because like I said, the body will go after the easiest source, which is the carbohydrates. And this, now you have to understand, you have to relate this style of primal eating to our ancestors. So what's happened here in the United States is for decades, we've been brainwashed with the Western diet saying high carbs and low fat. And so even this week alone, I had a couple of people send me their meal plans that they were giving me, that they were following by their trainers. And that's exactly how those meal plans were set up. Now, those of you that are listening to us today that have actually gone with those multiple different Western diets, you guys know they don't work. They never have worked. And they never will work. Yeah, I grant you will lose weight at first, a little bit of weight at first, but it always plateaus out. And then you start gaining more weight, and then you get frustrated, and what happens? You quit. And when you quit, then 6 months, 7 months later, you not only put the weight on that you've lost, but you've doubled it. And that's the vicious cycle of a Western diet, a high carb diet. A lot of these trainers and wellness coaches and nutritionists put people on eating meals every 2 hours. Okay, doesn't matter what food you're eating, it's still going to raise the hormone that is designed to store fat, and that's insulin. Insulin is activated by glucose or sugar from the carbs. Okay, and so what you have to look at is that we got to reverse that. We got to reverse that lifestyle. We have to go back to what our ancestors did. We got to keep the hormones. The hormones is one of the major, if not the root cause of why so many people are getting that belly fat and hip fat or rear fat that are past 40 years old. They're doing everything they're trying everything. They're doing everything they think they're doing right, yet they're still gaining the belly fat, or they're struggling in losing those last 10 or 15 pounds. It's all about hormone balancing. And most all, if not all, have imbalanced hormones that are having a struggling issue. Well, the idea to be fat adapted is to lessen the amount of glucose you're eating, which is going to deplete. The less carbohydrates you eat, and you get down to a base. Now, the 2 meal plans I saw, they were around 300 grams of carbs per day, which is way too much. That's keeping the insulin spiked. And so by eating every 2 hours on top of the high carbs, because carbs convert to glucose, which are converted to sugar. And so what happens is you're continually eating 2 to 3 meals a day. You're having a meal, and you're adding more sugar to your liver, and you're adding more sugar. You're adding more glucose being stored in the muscle. So your body, this is where it gets interesting. So like I said, the carbohydrates are easy for the body to go after. So if you're continually feeding yourself the glucose, then you've got plenty of energy there. When are you actually dipping into the body fat or the belly fat or the hip fat to absorb or to take out that fat and use it as energy? You're not going to. The body will not go and grab the fat in your fat cells as energy, because you have plenty of glucose. Very simple fix here. Drop.
That's really interesting, Coach. One thing I'd like to point out to people, 2 things. I think it's interesting how the body is like most everything else. It wants to take the path of least resistance. It wants to take the easiest route. And in this case, the easiest place for it to get its energy from is from the sugar. And if it's so plentiful, then it's going to just use what it needs. And then what isn't needed, then it's going to go ahead and store that as fat for maybe someday if it ever needs it. And then your other thing about exercise, I think you mentioning that the diet is 98% of the equation and maybe 2% is exercise. I think that's borne out in what Dr. Barry Ah talked about, where when he started drinking Kangen water, he deliberately stopped exercising for like 3 or 4 months. And he just completely stopped exercising on purpose. And it's pretty amazing the transformation that his body took from doing that. And so, yeah, I think that stuff really validates what you're talking about. So anyway, go ahead
and so the idea of the fat adaptation. Now, this is where people get in trouble, and this is where they need guidance, because we've already made all the mistakes out there. We've read about other people, what mistakes they've made, and this is what sabotages most people being successful in losing the belly fat and body fat, is because the lack of education on how to get your body to switch over from burning glucose as its main energy source to switching over to fat, to actually dip into your fat cells, because that's what you want, right? You want to dip into your own fat cells and to burn that belly or hip fat. But if you're eating abundance of carbs, or you're eating or you're eating every 2 hours, that's not going to happen. Well, the problem is people think, well, okay, I went on the internet, Google, and I've read all these testimonies of people losing weight, going on a primal eating lifestyle, or or ketogenic, known by most of you out there. And the success stories are backing up. And then the person's got a little bit of education on how to research, and he finds out that he went into Google Scholar and find out, wow, there's actually research showing how primal eating actually does help you burn that belly and hip fat over a long-term period. So what do? Well, remember here, I've talked about this in the past, that here in the United States, people want a quick fix. They want to do everything fast. They want results right now. And so what happens is they jump right into changing their lifestyle to a higher fat, which means that a primal eating lifestyle is 75% dietary fat, 20% moderate pasture-raised protein, and 5% carbs. So what you have here is you've increased your dietary fat much higher, and you've really dropped your carbs to a low level to keep your insulin, the hormone that's designed to store fat, at a base to control it from adding fat to your cells. So but the problem is people don't realize that you just cannot shut down from eating carbs and jump right into this, because the body has been on carbs as its primary source of energy for decades. Most of you out there probably have never done a lifestyle like this, so your body is used to do it. Now, what happens if you cold turkey shut it down when you've depleted, because you're no longer consuming so many carbs, you're no longer eating every 2 hours, and you read somebody's meal plan and it shows that they're having eggs, bacon, and avocado for breakfast, so that is very high fat and very low carbs. Well, when your body depletes all the liver, or all the glucose and sugar out of the liver, you're always going to have a little bit of glucose left in the muscle, because there's certain parts of the body, organs, that need some glucose, but you're going to have very little left in the muscle. Then the body is going, hey, wait a minute. there's no more glucose in the liver. What am I going to do? The body does not know how to switch over to the fat yet. And that's when blood sugar starts to drop, or that's when somebody tells me, oh my gosh, I have to have food before I go to the gym because I'll pass out. Well, the reason why you're passing out is because your blood sugar drops so low, and because your body does not know how to switch over. Well, when that happens to somebody, obviously what they're going to blame it on the high fat diet, when it's actually their body has not been taught how to do that, and you have to walk into changing your lifestyle to a primal eating lifestyle, to fat burning in small steps. And how
That's
you do
fascinating right there. That really is. That's fascinating because, and that's what the fat adaptation is all about, right? Is got to figure out how to, a little bit at a time, get your body to adapt and turn away from taking that path of least resistance and moving into the little more difficult aspect of being able to adapt to actually burning the fat and getting after that, using that as energy.
Right.
That's really interesting, Coach. So what kind of a time frame does it typically take for somebody, and what do? How do you start somebody out and then get them working into that? That's just fascinating. And we've got Lauren Wright here on the show with us today. She's in the room. And I'm guessing that she's probably going to have some questions here later on in the show. And Lauren, write those questions down or whatever. And here towards the end, we'll definitely give you an opportunity to ask Coach whatever questions if he doesn't already manage to answer them as he's talking about what's going on. So yeah, that's super cool, Coach. I'm really interested to hear, how you go about that process of getting the body to convert and adapt.
Well, I've got a great example. I started a young man off in Texas who who's overweight, and he's been overweight for a while. So and the amount of weight that he has gained over the couple of years, because there's other factors involved. I mean, obviously one of the main factors is hormone imbalance. Especially you've lost control of the hormones that actually you lost control of the hormone that is designed to store fat, but you've also lost control of the hormones that depresses your appetite, the connection between the brain and the stomach. You've lost control of that hormone also. And so there's other factors involved that's going to cause you to struggle to lose that belly fat. And you guys have heard me talk about this as your fatty liver. Well, this young man, he's young. He's getting married, I think, in 6 or 7 months, and he wants to get himself in better shape. And so I just started him off. This is his 3rd week on the protocols. And so how I do it is, first thing I do is I have a questionnaire that I send them. Now they have to answer all the questions on it, and that kind of gives me a structure of what their lifestyle is like today. So I can look at it and then start adjusting things. And I know what he's doing, what he's eating. Now he was eating most of his meals out. And so we had to talk about how, once you change your lifestyle to primal eating, that you got to eliminate most of the eating out and maybe take one day, one night a week for one meal and go out to dinner, because the meals, even though all restaurants serve primal food, the food is still has a lot of hidden carbs in it, which is going to throw it off. And so what I did, I started him off. I told him that we're going to start him off with 3 meals a day. Of course, I asked him, when does he have his first meal? The first week or two, the first two weeks, I don't care if they have it at 7 in the morning. I don't care if they have it at 8 in the morning. If they eat breakfast, if they've been used to eat breakfast, that's fine. But we're going to start off at 3 meals a day. breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But those meals are going to be primal, higher fat meals. Remember what I said here. All foods, it doesn't matter what it is, protein or fat, doesn't matter. All foods will elevate your insulin, which is converted into glucose. Insulin is the main disruptor, and so all food is going to raise that up. Well, then I don't know if you guys have heard of this before, but then I'll have them go down to either a drugstore, CVS, Walgreens, whatever you want, and I'll have them get them a box of ketone strips. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, but they're called ketone strips. Now, we'll talk about this another time, but ketones is the main ingredient that's going to show me the timeline when you're going to start being fat adapted. So what that means is once your body has completely depleted all the glucose out of the liver, all of it, then your body is going to start to go into your fat stores, draw the fat out of the fat stores, out of your bank account, and it's going to convert that fat into what they call ketones. Ketones are very, very important for our body. There is so much nutritional value and so much health benefits once that liver starts producing the ketones and then delivering it to your cells, especially the brain. Ketones are one of the most important molecules to give to your brain for brain food. And that's why when people become fat adapted, they're saying the clarity in their brain is much, much better. That is the reason for it. We'll talk about that at another time. But what the strips are going to tell me is that when their liver starts producing ketones. So for example, he's brand new. He about a month before he started up with me, he also did his research on primal eating and found out that this is something he needs to do to lose weight. So he kind of started doing it. Well, when I had him go down to the drugstore and get the strips, I have recipes and I have a structure to start people off that are brand new. There's no counting microbes. There's microbes. There's no counting calories. There's no counting grams of fat. There's no counting nothing. I already have the combination of foods set up to where you don't have to count nothing. You just got to follow it. That's it. I already have that done. And so what I told him, I said, okay, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I want you to wake up first thing in the morning before you have any water, before you start moving around a lot. I want you to, and the ketone strips will measure the ketones in the urine. I want you to pee on the strip, send me a picture of it. I want to see it. Okay, and there's colors on that. And the different colors will tell me how deep or if you're producing ketones and how many ketones you're producing. So I'll have him do that first thing in the morning because I want to see what his body does in the middle of the night because that's when it does a lot of repairing. Then before his last meal of the day, so say for example, he eats at 7 o'clock is when he usually eats his last meal. Just before he eats, I want to see what his ketone levels are. So I have him do that Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. So what that's telling me is that giving me, because most people, when you first start peeing on those strips, you won't register any ketones at all because your body still has stored up glucose. As soon as they've been eating the primal eating program 3 days a week. They're eating, it's strictly high fat foods. I don't know. Sometimes each individual person reacts different to the strips. It depends on how long the person's been fat, or it depends on what stage of fatty liver they're in. That all determines how quickly they start switching over. So there's factors involved, and each person is different. And depending on how long they've been carboholics, depending on how heavy they are, how long have they been heavy? I don't know. That's why the strips, I need them to see as soon as they hit a light pink. That's telling me that their body is now starting to switch over to burning fat. They're still eating 3 meals a day though, and it's all fat. So I'm using the fat. This is where it gets interesting. This is where it's crazy. This is some crazy stuff. I'm using the fat in the food to get their body used to burning fat. You see what I'm doing?
Yeah, that makes great sense. And so you were saying now when they're eating these 3 meals a day, when they start out on your protocol, they're eating 3 meals a day 7 days a week, or 3 meals a day 3 days a week?
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Yeah. So because see, there's a lot of people are when they're researching on Google, or they find a blog, or they get these skeptics out there on Google that says, okay, the primal eating is all a bunch of BS. It's a scam. And these people that are writing these things, they have no idea on the physiology of the bottle, how it works. They have no idea how the digestive tract works. And they have no idea what our ancestors did. And so they don't know, but they're just putting what they might have went through, or what they heard their friends went through. And the biggest issue is something they call keto flu. Okay? So what do we do if we put somebody on hydrogen-rich water right off the bat, brand spanking new, and if we're doing it, if we're sharing the water right, we tell people right up front, you're probably going to go through some detoxing, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the body's natural way of flushing out the toxic chemicals and the contaminants that are stored up in our cells. Most people will go through detoxing. There's no difference between that and starting on a primal eating brand new. The same thing. You're detoxifying the body. That's one of the biggest health benefits of switching from burning carbohydrates to burning fat. It activates the body's natural detoxification mechanism. Natural. Just like the water does, natural. It's not induced by any chemicals or pills, or it's not. That's the physiology of the body. That's how it works. So what happens is they're afraid because they don't want to get the keto flu because it's going to cause. I mean, that's like the flu. You're actually getting the flu, and you feel like crap. But what happens is they don't understand. This is where coaching comes in, or guidance comes in. Let's address that keto flu before it even happens. And how do we do that? Here we go again. Icing on the cake. Hydrogen-rich water has natural minerals in it. Okay? And then sea salt is also has minerals in it. When somebody gets the keto flu, 9 out of 10 times, they're chronically dehydrated, and their minerals in their bodies is unbalanced. By hydrating, and if you can go and look at the research, they tell you this, by hydrating like you're supposed to every day, and combining it with taking Himalayan or pink sea salt with all the minerals and trace minerals in it, you are going to most likely eliminate the keto flu. So that's how you do it. But getting back to the strips, as the body starts switching into fat adaptation, the color of the strips will go from a light pink to a darker pink to a real dark pink to a purple and so forth. That tells me, okay, this guy his body is now transitioned from burning glucose as its primary source of fuel and is now used to burning the fat. Okay, but remember, this is the key here. This is where people get duped. And this is why I always say to people, do not waste your money on buying products or supplements that raise your ketones. Even doctors now, this is getting ridiculous. Doctors are coming up with their own products and they're saying, you take this powder or you take this pill and let's go, and that's going to raise your ketones up, because that's telling you you're in fat adaptation and you're burning body fat. That is a bunch of BS, because what are you doing? You're not dipping into your body fat. You're using something else to trick it.
Right.
It's not going to work. Okay. And so then once it gets their, when their ketone levels get up there and the color is darker, then I explain to them, I say, okay, guys, and each person that follows my 60-day program, they actually get a training video explaining fat adaptation with the science, so that they're educated as they're going through the process, because I don't want them just to do it. But then what happens, I explained to them, I said, okay, now we've got your body switched over to fat adaptation. Urine. The urine is only testing the ketones that are overflowing out of your liver. Okay, this is the idea. When you're producing ketones brand new right off the bat, a lot of those ketones are flowing out of the liver and not to the cells, because your body's still not utilizing them all. The object is, once you become deeper into fat adaptation and your body is getting more efficient, then your cells are going to be utilizing more of the ketones coming out of the liver. And that's when the magic starts. So then I explained to them, after about 2 weeks of being on this, I said, okay, now what we're looking for is this is how important these strips are. Very, very inexpensive way to keep, to know that we're in ketosis. That's what when you're producing ketones in the liver, it's known as ketosis to science. So then once they understand what's going on here with their bodies, and this guy that I'm working with in Texas, he's a smart dude. He's a computer, what do you call him? He's a computer engineer. He's a smart dude. And he is completely blown away on how this all works and how his body's reacting and the way he feels, and how it just in 3 weeks, how his clothes are changing so fast. So what happens is I say, his name is Gunnar. I say, now what we want to look for now is we want to look for that color of the ketone strips to go from it's at a dark color now we want to get lighter. And he's going, well, wait a minute, I thought I wanted to be in ketosis. I go, you do, but we want the body to utilize all the ketones that are coming out of the liver. We don't want it to be wasted.
Right. So
he says, now, as your body becomes more and more fat adapted, as your body becomes more utilizing more of the ketones throughout the cells, you've got trillions and trillions of cells. So gradually, those cells are going to start utilizing more of the ketones, and the color of those strips are going to get less and less. And bingo, we're right in line. We're doing exactly what the body is going to do. We're getting closer to what they call autophagy. Autophagy is now, in 2016, this is how new all this stuff is. Being in therapeutic ketosis is going to help you get into a therapeutic autophagy. 2016, a scientist out of Japan, a researcher, won a Nobel Prize for discovering autophagy when you're in a prolonged fast. And he found out, besides Dr. Thomas Seinfeld himself also, they found out that if by putting your body into therapeutic ketosis, put your body into what they call therapeutic autophagy, this is going to starve cancer cells.
No.
When your body is fully rooted deep in fat adaptation, the cancer cells have no food because cancer cells can't live off fat. And you're so fat adapted that you're killing the cancer cells. And I mean, Dr. Thomas Seinfeld actually did experiments with his own clients on brain tumors. And people could go look that up themselves. But anyway, 2016, that's how new it is. So now my client, or Gunner, is 3 weeks in it. So the second week, now what I'm going to do, I've got his body used to burning fat, so we're okay. Now guess what we're going to do? Now we're going to combine intermittent fasting to actually get his body to start doing what? I'm going to stop using as much of the food that he's eating that's high fat for the body to burn the fat. I'm going to stop using the fat from the food. I'm going to introduce intermittent fasting slowly so that he's fasting for 18 hours without any calories, 0 calories. Coffee and hydrogen-rich water with sea salt. That's it. So if you haven't eaten, so for example, you stop, your last meal is at 6 o'clock on a Monday night. It's your last meal, which is a primal eating meal. And then you don't eat anything until 12 o'clock the next day, then if you're not eating any calories or no food, and you've depleted your liver completely from all glucose, where's the body going to get the energy it needs to survive and heal itself during the whole night and the next day? Where's it going to get it from?
It's got to get it from your fat cells.
Exactly. Now, if you're looking to lose that belly fat or hip fat or butt fat, don't you think it makes sense that you're better off? That's what you want to do?
Absolutely.
That's why I say that now the thing is hydrogen-rich water, which I always call is the icing on the cake, is that it's a device, or it's a tool that we use to flush out contaminants and toxic chemicals. Well, it also is used to do what? It's used to flush out metabolic waste that comes from the digestive, by you eating food. One of the root causes of obesity, obviously, is a very acidic body, and hydrogen-rich water, because of the H2, has the ability to flush out the acidity in the body, which is just another tool on top of the primal eating and intermittent fasting, another tool. And it's also your safeguard to make sure that your minerals are balanced through fasting. Okay. Now, the question is, what hormones are causing us to store bellies? That belly fat. There's 2 of them. This is where it gets crazy. So when you're fasting, and you're fasting for 18 hours or 20 hours, and your body is completely in fat adaptation at that time, and it's going after those fat stores, your cortisol levels are going to be high. Why? Because fasting puts your body into starvation mode or shock. And cortisol is known for what? It's a hormone to help you. It's called the fight and flight hormone. So your cortisol level is going to be higher. Well, how many times have you guys heard somebody say that your cortisol is actually an enemy? It's causing you to gain weight when it comes to trying to lose weight. You got to get your cortisol, you got to get yourself relaxed and get your cortisol level down, or you're going to gain more weight. Well, actually, that's true in a certain environment, but actually, when you're in intermittent fasting mode, or you're in a prolonged fast, say a 20 to 24 hours or a 48-hour fast, cortisol is your best friend. Because guess what cortisol does? It actually helps you to burn fat.
So it triggers, having that extra cortisol triggers your fat burning.
It triggers certain hormones, especially the ones that are designed to lessen your appetite. Besides that, when you're in that stage where the cortisol level's high, you're also triggering noradrenaline, adrenaline, and growth hormones. What are growth hormones known for? Anti-aging, adding lean muscle. So they all work great. This is where people get in trouble, and this is where belly fat. This is how you add more belly fat and hip fat in that section. This is what happens is, because the cortisol is so high when you're fasting, what happens is then you're going to break your fast. And this is where I have to explain to people, you have to know how to break your fast when you're coming off intermittent or prolonged fasting. Because if you break your fast with a high carb diet, and I've said this before, high carb foods increase your insulin. There's a baseline you want to stay at all the time. You've got to have insulin to survive, but you got to keep it below base. When you add carbohydrates and you're breaking your fast with high carb foods, like starchy foods, breads, butters, processed, when you go out to eat, you're going to break your fast when you go to you're going to go to BJ's, or you're going to have a sweet potato because you think you're doing, sweet potato supposedly say it is a low glycemic, but it still affects the insulin. What happens is when your cortisol is high, you break your fast with a high carb meal that spikes the insulin up. You put those two together and bingo, you're going to add fat to your belly. That's how it works. So what I have my client doing this week, this is his third week, I have him breaking his fast a half hour to 45 minutes before his main meal, which is going to be primal. We're going to keep him at a high fat meal, but I have him break his fast with either bone broth, organic beef, chicken, or turkey, whatever you like, or a very lean piece of meat like a white lean chicken. Or my wife breaks her fast with homemade kefir, or she'll break her fast with what she calls a fat green tea. So what I'm doing there, the reason why I'm breaking the fast is because those types of meals gets the cortisol to drop to a healthy level, so that when you have your main meal, which is going to be primal, then it's not going to cause an issue. And the ketone strips, once that liver and those cells, once those cells utilize the ketones out of that liver, and those strips start to get lighter and lighter, those strips will no longer work. This is where people get in trouble, because they're focusing on those strips, thinking, I've had multiple people call me, Bill, my strips are no longer pink, and I'm doing everything you're saying. I have to explain this. I have to tell them, Yahoo, because then we have, from that point, we have to go to what we call a GKI index, or it's called a GKI, glucose. It's called glucose ketone index. And there's a parameter, and what that is then we go to going into what we call blood testing. Because they are no longer showing any more ketones on that strip. So obviously the ketones are being utilized by the cells, and the only way we're going to keep ourselves on tack to make sure that we're still in ketosis is by doing an actual blood test with a monitor or a meter that type 2 diabetics use. They have a meter out there that does both the glucose in the blood and then does ketone levels in the blood. And every so often I'll have them check that, and they'll give me a glucose reading. Let's say, for example, where I want them to be. I want them to be around somewhere around 70, a glucose reading about 70 to 85. So their glucose level, say, is 85 when they give me the reading. Then I have them check their ketones, and their ketones, I want them to be up. Their blood ketones, I want them to be up to be 0.5 or higher. I take those two readings and I calculate it out. And if I'm at a number that tells me I'm in nutritional ketosis, we are still in fat burning mode. But what happens is people get so focused on those readings that I have to calm them down and say, you know what? Basically, you've already in fat adaptation. It may take you 6 months. It may take you 8 months. It may take you a year to get where Emily and I are, because there are some advantages when you do come, when you're at rooted fat adaptation like Emily and I are. There's play in there where we can go out and enjoy life and have desserts and things, and we're right back in fat adaptation 8 to 10 hours later.
Wow. Gosh, Coach, that's some cool stuff. I'm really digging this. And so, perhaps next week in next week's episode, we can talk a little bit more about the prolonged fasting, because I know for myself, that's the part that is kind of really most intriguing and kind of confusing and that kind of stuff. So maybe, because today we talked about the process of getting yourself into that fat adaptation mode, and kind of what the protocol is for doing that. Obviously, it's a lot deeper than anything that we could discuss in an hour-long show, but but hopefully what we can do is stimulate people to want to know more, and then hopefully they'll reach out to you and want to purchase your coaching, purchase your program, whatever, and we can start letting them know how that all works. But I'm guessing that a lot of people are, the whole idea of fasting, it almost seems like some sort of foreign language or some sort of alien concept I know it does to myself, and I'm sure it does to a lot of people. The idea of going without food kind of, is just something that just seems kind of mind-boggling to me. And so I'm looking forward to learning more about that and how my wife and I can start utilizing this as well. And it's kind of interesting because we have 3 freezers in this house that are just chock full of food. And I'm guessing that if you were to come here and go through our freezers, you'd be like, oh, garbage, 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 garbage. Okay, that you can keep. Yeah. Garbage, 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 garbage. Here, you keep that garbage. And so we've got a lot of work to do to figure out how to get into this kind of a diet, because I'm really intrigued by it. And I don't have a lot of fat to burn, but I got a little bit. I got a little bit right here in my gut that I wouldn't mind getting back to the old 6-packs that I had, a few years back, and that kind of thing. So I'm really intrigued by all this, and I want to learn about it myself, and also, do the best I can to help make this process and, make this available to others so that they can start learning how they can literally safely, effectively, naturally lose that fat, because you and I both know that we have got a double buttload of fat people out there. Everywhere you go, it's just like most everybody is fat. And, even if they're not extremely fat, they're still fat. And I want to help them. And I know that I believe that what you're doing is the best way to help them. And so I'm looking forward to learning more about this and sharing little secrets and things like that every Friday that can help people change their lives, right along with that icing on the cake that we're both so passionate about.
You made a comment. We're right back to the icing on the cake, and you and I both are always falling back to this. And this is what, I don't know what it is why people out there just don't get it, because we keep bringing it up, but they still just don't get it, because maybe it's too simple for them. I don't know. But you made a comment earlier on the show about how you're only eating maybe 1 or 2 meals a day, yet because you're drinking the hydrogen rich water, it's making you full, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So what happens is a question came up, and I did a video about this, I think a couple of days ago, about this question, because I like doing videos on certain questions that somebody asked me. But I had people asking me, how, even at the gym, how can you and Emily, it's so easy for you guys to do a prolonged fast. And like Emily did on Monday and Tuesday, she did a 48-hour fast. She had no calories, 48 straight hours, and still trained hard. And people are going, I mean, how do you do that? I mean, I'll be starving. And I'll explain to them. I said, well, it's simple, because we are fat adapted, and because we were consistent with our primal eating, and now with our intermittent and prolonged fasting, and because we were patient and we let our body adjust. That word patient, most Americans are not patient. They want results now, but the body doesn't work that way. You got to give it time. It could take you 6 months. It could take you 8 months. I don't know.
Right.
But why are you guys able to go through this and I mean, go through a 24-hour fast or a 48-hour fast? Maximum for us is 72 hours, and we don't do that all the time, just to cleanse ourselves out once in a while. Why, Bill? And I tell them, I said, it's pretty simple. It's because it's all about hormone balance. That's what it's about. When you're going through an intermittent or prolonged fasting, I'm activating a hormone that is telling my brain I'm full. I don't have an appetite. Now, I do have a secret here, and I don't know if I'm going to release the secret on this show or not, but I may next week. It just depends. But I have a secret that actually will activate fat burning during intermittent fasting even more.
Yeah, well, that should be the point of the whole thing, right? Is that, the reason you're going without food, without calories, is because you're trying to force your body to eat the fat.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. And then when you're first starting out, that hormone that is activated will actually, it takes a little time for that hormone to be consistent. Once it's consistent, then you have no issue. I mean, you're not hungry. A matter of fact, what happens is, guys, is those of you that live for food, those of you that your food clock goes on automatically. So, like, for example, I'll use this, your food clock. Okay, you work a 40-hour work week. All of a sudden at around 11:30 or 12 o'clock, your stomach starts to make funny noises. What do? You look at your watch. Oh my gosh, it's time to eat, right?
Yeah.
When you eat, breakfast is the same. You get home, you normally get home at 5 or 6. As soon as you open your car door to walk in the house, what happens? Bingo, your stomach starts to make funny noises, because why? You're programmed to eat at 5 or 6. Well, guess what? When you're fat adapted and you're consistent and you're doing intermittent prolonged fasting, and your body is now producing or activating a hormone that's going to depress your appetite, that clock goes away. So now, right now, most of you are driving or live off food. You live off that clock. But when you become fat adapted, that clock is no longer around, and food no longer runs your life.
Wow.
So if you work a 40-hour work week, and say you don't take a lunch because you're not hungry, how much more work are you going to get done?
You're going to get at least an extra hour of work done that day,
That'll make you happy. Yeah.
I love it. I look forward to, this is great stuff, you guys. I hope everybody that takes the time to watch this, if you're, I'm going to let people know, if you really want to learn how to get rid of that body fat, you got to start tuning into these shows, because Coach Bill's busting out the goods. And, so next week we're going to talk a little bit more about giving you guys a little bit of insight into what goes into prolonged fasting once you have, because you only want to do the prolonged fasting or the intermittent fasting once you have gotten your body to the point where it is now it's gotten into being adaptive to utilizing the fat. And that's when you want to start doing your fasting, because then literally you don't have anything, and the body has to go and eat the fat. It has to burn that fat.
That's right.
And so this is fascinating stuff, Coach. I really appreciate you taking your time every Friday to come in here and share this magic with people, because this really is important stuff. This is the kind of stuff that, that along with Kangen water can really, really change lives. And that's what we're all about. We want to help people change their lives for the better in all aspects. And that's what's been such a blessing about being involved with Kangen water, and being in what I call the Kong family, because it's just incredible, the people, the things that I've learned, the areas where I've gained understanding and wisdom and that kind of thing, and to go along with this kind of stuff. And it's all about being healthy. If we don't have our health, we have nothing. And so I'm real excited to be on this journey with you, and I want to start learning how to do this and start adapting this into my life, so both myself and my wife can become fat adaptive, and hopefully we can teach people how to do this as time goes by as well. But personally, I don't want to get into being a coach for this kind of stuff. I'd rather push people off to you, because this is your specialty. I just want to be able to do it myself. And, but yeah, gosh, I really appreciate all this information. It's been fascinating today. I'm loving learning these little secrets. And then, quite frankly, this just basically tells us what the secrets are, but you still got to learn how to adapt these secrets to your lifestyle. And so I know there's going to be a lot to that, and I'm going to have to be reaching out to you to learn how we can get on board this train and start doing it, being a product of our product. And
right.
That's really a big part of what we're trying to do. And I think it's impressive what I've seen from you and what I've learned from you. And, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk, baby. And it's impressive. And so I'm going to be really encouraging people that want to learn how they can do this too, to, hey, reach out to Coach. He'll be able to help you along the way and get you going the direction you need to go. And so, yeah, what an awesome episode today. We're a little over an hour in, and I'd like to try and keep these things, around 45 minutes to an hour, because you know how people are. They just, they have so little attention span that, trying to get people to listen to something for more than an hour is like pulling their teeth. So,
yeah.
So yeah, but I love it, buddy. I appreciate everything that you and Emily are doing, and I really appreciate you coming in here. And it's just wonderful knowing that every Friday I get to meet with you. I get to learn something new, something important, something that's backed by science, something that can help people. And that right there really makes me excited. I know that every Friday I'm like, yeah, baby, we're excited here. We got both Coach Mabry coming in the house again today. We get to learn something great and share it with people. And so, yeah, thank you once again, buddy. Really appreciate it. And look forward to learning a little bit about intermittent and prolonged fasting next week. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah. You had another coach on your show a couple of days ago. Who was that again?
That's Coach Menard, Sharon Riley Menard. She's actually a mindset coach. She's like a life and mindset coach, and she actually uses your system. She uses what you do.
Yeah, she
loves you, and she loves your system, and she says it's made all the difference in the world in her life. And so,
well, she was very. I worked with her, and she was. She learned really fast, because she had that mindset of wanting to understand the process. but she did it right. I mean, she did it right all the way. And in a tip, just a real short tip here. If you want to be successful in these protocols, all three of them, you've got to eliminate the times that you go out to eat every week. If you're not willing to not go out to, if you're not willing to give that up, don't even try. Don't try to lose the weight, because you're not. That is one of the biggest things that will sabotage your results and slow it way down, is by going out to eat too often per week.
Yeah, when I told Coach Menard that you were going to be coming on the show on Friday, she was ecstatic about it. She said that's just absolutely fantastic. His program is rock solid and A#1, and I use it myself, is what she said to me. And I think that's just fantastic that he's willing to do that. So, yeah, she's just another testament to what you're doing. And so I love it. I love her. She's a sweetie. She comes on once a month, the first Monday of every month, and she gives us, some mindset tips and, lifestyle tips as far as what you're thinking, because, we know that our mindset is a part of the whole equation as well. And, just like talking about the ketones and the brain. And so, yeah, we know that that's part of the equation. It's just a matter of implementing it and helping others to be able to do it if they want to as well. And like you say, if they're not willing to break their old habits, they're not going to be able to create new ones, are they?
No.
So, yeah.
They'll get frustrated, and they'll blame it on the program when it's actually their fault.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it is. I always tell people, if you got problems, look in the mirror. That's where your problems are. They're in the mirror. Look at them. Pay attention to them. That's where your problems are. Quit blaming other people for your problems, because you got to look inward. You got to look at yourself. And I believe that 100%. I've got my issues, but I don't go and blame them on other people, because I know right where they belong. They belong right there in the mirror. So, yeah, Coach, love you, buddy. Thank you so much for coming in on Friday again with us, and look forward to next Friday. And you have yourself an awesome weekend. And, thank you for being here with us. We're going to change the world. Not only one glass of hydrogen-rich, oxygen-saturated, incredibly hydrating Collins water at a time, but with intermittent fasting, fat adaptation, ketones, primal diet, and very exciting stuff to learn. I'm looking forward to this and getting educated myself, so that I can start putting this stuff to work and get your program and that kind of thing. And I'm going to reach out to you offhand, because I've got something I wanted to ask you about. And so I'll send you a private message, and you can let me know what you can do in that department. We'll go from there. But
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. Really love you. Really appreciate everything you're doing. And God bless you and Emily, and have a great weekend. Have a great next week, and we'll see you next Friday.
You too, and have a blessed rest of the week. And for those out there that are listening to this, you guys have a blessed rest of the week also.
Yeah, get a hold of Coach Bill Mabry, Mabry, Mabry on Facebook, and let him know that you want to learn about what he's doing. And I know he'll be happy to help you. So, awesome. Thanks again, Coach. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.